Hi guys, how's it going? Everybody having a good time? Yeah! All right, my name is Alina. I am a design lead from ZURB. We are a little design company in Little Campbell. It's a small little town in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's just sort of like close to San Jose. So we are a product design company, and we do lots of things, including a little CSS framework that we built called Foundation. And we also have a bunch of other products, and we really believe in design literacy and really educating everybody about design and making design as awesome as possible. So when we approach design problems, and everything that we do is we think it's a design problem, it's some sort of a business goal that needs to be achieved by managing user needs. We try to address it from the user standpoint, and we think of it as really designing a holistic experience from the beginning to the very end and everything that goes in between. So if you were to think about product design as in actual physical products, if you were trying to design someone's favorite chair, you might figure out how do they like to sit in it, or where is this chair located? Do they like to lounge, or do they like to sit up, or what's sort of their personal use? But what you're really trying to do is to create a really kind of crazy, irrational connection that they have between their favorite chair and sort of what they like to do. And we think that best products out there are able to create those really long-lasting connections. Love it or hate it, Facebook is probably one of those companies that was able to do that with their product. I think statistically speaking, people who have smartphones and Facebook installed on their phone check their news feed about 14 times a day, which is incredible. And if you were to ask them, why are you part of Facebook? They would probably have a very rational answer. They would say, oh, I love to share my photos with my friends, or I like to see what they're doing. But to validate why they check it 14 times a day would be really kind of difficult for them. Nonetheless, here they are. I check it way too often. I get in trouble for it all the time with my friends. But they were able to do something really successful there with creating this lasting connection. But we are designing for people, right? We're designing for human beings, and you are actually able to design something that leverages our natural human behaviors to create these products that are super sticky. And the reason you're able to do that is because we are terribly flawed. We're vain, cheap, and easily amused. And look at that. Just illustrating my point. All right. Now on to the 9 behaviors. So the first one we'll talk about is the familiarity bias. So what that basically means is that we are creatures of habits, and we like things that we like. We like things that we know. And if you are at a restaurant, you are very likely to order your favorite dessert over and over again. And when you are at a wedding, if you hear the band playing Sweet Caroline, you're going to go bum, 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 because everybody does it. It's a song that everybody knows, and everybody can share this warm and fuzzy feeling between each other, and it's just a lovely moment. But you can do that in design too. We're obviously all trying to innovate and do something really creative and new, but even the best new things use really old sort of natural patterns. Best example of that is the iPhone. Obviously, when it came out, it was a huge revolutionary thing. It was amazing. Nobody has ever seen anything like that. But the reason it was so successful was because it used a lot of these really natural gestures that were really familiar to people, and they felt like they could really connect with that. The reason for that is the familiar moments create trust. And when you see something that you already know, you automatically trust it. So you can do that in design. For example, in Squarespace, you can do, there's a big slideshow of all these different desktops, and I can identify with this one. Because, this desktop looks really cool. I love cupcakes. I read books all the time. Yes, this is a product that I trust. I can try it out, and I'm sure I will have a good experience with it. And if that's not something you can do right off the bat, what you can do is actually create that familiarity from letting people kind of give your product a shot. And you can do that either through a free trial, let somebody give it, have a little bit of a taste, or do some sort of a sandbox or demo so people can actually test out the product. Design patterns, for me, are also something that is very familiar. There are about, 100 of these coming out every single day, but if you look at them, you see that all of them have a button, all of them have form elements, all of them have some sort of switch, sliders, things like that. And the reason we keep doing that is because when a person comes to a site and they see a switch, they automatically know that that's a switch. They don't really need to think about what it does. They already know exactly what it is, and that's why we continue using these patterns over and over again. Sometimes you want to be creative and create something new and awesome. An example of that would be the pull down to refresh. That was very, very confusing when it came out, but obviously gained a lot of popularity because we want to overcome those confusing moments. We want to feel like we can do it, so we get it. And obviously it gained tremendous popularity. Almost every app has some sort of pull to refresh functionality nowadays, but be careful with the new patterns. It takes a while for them to catch on. Next up, relative value. So as it turns out, we have a really, really hard time gauging absolute value of things. So if I were to ask you, how much this was, you probably would have no idea because, I have no idea how much it is. But if I were to compare it to something, you might be able to tell it better. So comparing things is easier than just seeing the one element and figuring out how much it's worth. But that's one of the reasons that a lot of times on products you will see a comparison table of some sort. It might be a pricing table or something like that. And if you were to show just one price for your product, people would have a really hard time figuring out if the product is actually worth that price, and they would be more likely to just give up and not try it at all, rather than seeing options and figuring out which one is best for them. We like feeling in control. We like to feel like we have given it some thought and made a decision. Control. We love that control. We want to feel like we thought about it and that we were very rational in our decision. But if you have too many options for a product, it becomes really hard for us to make those decisions. For example, I think about every site where you can buy tickets has a table like this where you have a really, really, really hard time figuring out what's the difference between these tickets. They're all the same price, $471, and I have to work really hard to figure out what the difference is. And that is why I never book my tickets. I have someone else do it for me. And naturally, things that are limited, either in number or time that it's available, those things are going to be more valuable in our opinion, whether that is true or not, but we will perceive them as more valuable. So a shoe fanatic like me would be very, very swayed by these, limited number of shoes available. I would be very, very likely to actually go ahead and buy those because those orange ones are pretty cool. All right, next up is Bandwagon. Let's see, how many of you enjoy a trashy reality TV show once in a while? Show of hands. All right, so if you guys had paid attention, you would notice that more of you raised your hand when you saw somebody else raise your hand, and that's the premise of Bandwagon. We are more likely to do something when we know that someone else has done that already. So that's because generally we're really easily swayed by actions or opinions of other people. We don't want to think about it that way, but that's sort of the truth. So a lot of times you will see stuff like this posted on sites where, you know, some people already have participated, your friends have already participated. I don't want to be left out. I want to be just like my friends. I want to be trendy and awesome. And that's why I am very likely to sign up to something like this. And it's a good reason to use the Facebook API. So definitely strength in numbers. You can show that in different ways. One way to show it is, you know, popular products. Show how many people are actually buying this product. We are more likely to buy the same products than, you know, a product that's no one bought. You can also feature popular products. So here, you know, I see these awesome sunglasses, and I think that I need to have them because they're so popular and I want to be awesome and trendy. And, you know, we want to see what other people think because we want to gauge our opinion against their opinions. So that's kind of an interesting one. We always want to have an opinion, but we want it to be somehow matched to somebody else's or have a reason to, you know, be on the opposite side of them. But we do want to hear what other people think. The interesting thing about Bandwagon is it can actually work against you. And the fascinating part about that is that people think negative information is actually much more profound than positive information, which is kind of sad, but if, you know, think about it, it's kind of true. All right, so that's the negative review. That's the first thing I see. I had the worst drink of my life at this place. And that's it. I totally don't care about the previous positive review that might have said, you know, this place is great. I question whether that person was telling the truth. I question their taste in their beverage. And I just see this thing as much more profound. Next up, authority. So this is an interesting one. We want to think of ourselves as rebels maybe sometimes, but if a cop pulls you over, you're probably going to do exactly what he tells you to do because you don't want to get in too much trouble, and it's just, he's wearing a hat and everything. So an interesting thing about authority is that we are almost willing to go past our own intuition and our own beliefs to obey an authoritative figure. And this was studied first time in 1962 by a Yale professor who did this little experiment where he had the teacher persona give questions to a student persona, and for every wrong answer they would get zapped with a little electricity. Obviously nobody was getting zapped and nobody was getting hurt, but the sort of as the questions went on and the student kept getting wrong answers over and over, the voltage kept going up and up, supposedly. And the teachers felt really uncomfortable with that. However, they did not stop in most cases. 65% of them did not stop, even though they were, they really felt uncomfortable with it. But they were told by an authoritative figure, no, you have to continue. You have to finish the experiment. You have to do it. And even though they felt really compelled not to do it, they still continued to do it. Now, this experiment brought on a lot of controversy. Nobody actually believed that it was possible that so many people actually went through with this evidently lethal dosage of voltage. But they kept repeating it over and over for many, many years, and they kept getting the same results. So it's kind of amazing that this happens. We are not trying to electrocute anybody, please. But you can use authority in your design. So you can be very authoritative and very sort of proof-driven in your work. So you can use stats to help someone sort of buy into the value. So in this case, it says, so many people are getting hurt by their TVs, and I believe them because that's a huge number right there. All right, you can also use authoritative voices in your design. So testimonials, especially from places that we are familiar with, will actually help us believe that this is much more valuable information. And the reviews, when you can give a little bit more of social proof here, and so many people found this review really helpful, I automatically trust it as a very authoritative voice. So you can also use authority very strategically in your design. You can be very, very smart about it. What you can do is you can actually place those strategic moments around friction points. So places where somebody might drop off, throw in a little benefit statement, throw a little testimonial in there, and that's going to help someone get past this barrier and actually buy into the product. With me so far?
Yeah.
All right. Faith in aesthetics, that's the next one. We don't want to think of ourselves as shallow, but we absolutely judge the book by its cover. It's kind of the truth. And whenever we are presented with a site or a product, we first judge it by its appearance before we actually consider any of the real value behind the content. There was a study done where users were shown 3 different health-related sites, and they were asked to comment on the site's trustworthiness. When the comments were collected, about 83% of them were actually stemming from things that are like color, font size, navigation, photography, even things like the name of the company. So those are the things that people look for in order to give them the first impression that the site or the product is trustworthy. And we think that attractive things are generally more valuable. So here's what is promised as the Whopper experience. And this is probably a little bit more likely of what you're going to get. Interesting thing about aesthetics is that it actually affects our perception of usability. So we think that aesthetically pleasing things are easier to use. So again, there was a quick study done where 60 people were asked to complete tasks on devices. So half of them got a really nice device, half of them got kind of an old device, and I don't know if these are the devices they got, just saying, but the people with the better devices, the better looking devices, were able to complete their tasks much faster, which is kind of astonishing. It sort of makes sense. I mean, if you have bigger type, you can click on it or tap on it easier, or you can see things that are more important easier. So keep that in mind. Invest in good design. All right, on to achievement. We love to win things. We love to win things, and for some reason, when sports figures win things, they love to kiss their trophy. I don't know why they do that. Competition is generally great, and we like the competition, but we like to feel like we can also win. So, I mean, Nike does that really well, where you can compete against your friends, and you can have a goal of beating out Jessica, who is a total overachiever, and you just are much more compelled to do better next time and win. And we also like challenges that are kind of challenging. We want to feel like we can do it. If we were presented with a challenge that was really difficult, we might actually give up and stop. So we like challenges that are kind of paced at a certain interval so that we can accumulate awesome rewards. Treehouse does that really well, where some of them are really easy to do, some of them are a little bit more challenging. Obviously, for everybody here, there's just a joke, but very, very simple. And another interesting thing about getting rewards is if we expect them at a regular interval, we kind of lose interest in them after a while, and we tend to want rewards more when we don't expect them, or we appreciate them more when we don't expect them. As it turns out, when you get a reward, you get sort of a dopamine release, and if you don't expect reward, it's sort of like a greater release, and you're like much more happier about it. Makes sense. Have you guys heard of KIP? Maybe. It's a pretty cool site. It's not a site, sorry. It's a product. What they do is they're trying to revolutionize the ad world, sort of. They don't want to call it ads, but they're finding rewardable moments within other applications, and they're rewarding people for really random things with other occasionally random items. So, for completing your to-do list here, this person got a $20 credit towards their next taxi ride. So that was pretty cool, and they're getting a lot of success with that. So if you find a way to make the rewards more kind of variable, that would be great. Yes. KIIP. And obviously, when we get something, we want to show it off on the Facebooks and the Twitters, and make sure everybody knows about it. So let people do that. If they can get a reward, let them share it with their friends. It actually makes them feel better about the whole situation. Next up, the Zeigarnik effect. I also call it the suspense syndrome. This just means that we like to know how the story ends. So when we get engaged in something, we want to finish it. So that's why the 1-hour drama are so successful. You hook somebody in the first 5-10 minutes, and then you wait till the very last 5 minutes to see how it ends, and they watch all the commercials and all that stuff. So we like to finish things that we start. It gives us a sense of closure. You hear this in relationships. We want that closure. There was, again, an experiment conducted where people were asked to complete jigsaw puzzles, and they were specifically not given enough time to complete them. So before they would be able to complete, they were told to stop. So they were actually finding that people would still continue to finish the puzzle after the time was called, because we just like that, having that completeness at the end. The key to this in design is to actually get someone to start something. And you do that by creating very, very low barriers for entry. So, LinkedIn, it's a very, very short form. It tells me that it's going to take me 2 minutes to complete this. I have, an expectation. I can understand that it's not going to take me a long time to do this. And then as you get someone into the process of doing something, trying to keep the steps at varying intervals is actually going to give them a bit more of sense of progress, even if it's sort of an illusion of progress, and it's going to keep them motivated. So as I'm completing my, my new LinkedIn profile, I can see exactly what I need to do. Some steps are going to be shorter, some steps are going to take a little bit more time. But then I know that at the end, I'm going to get a sweet, improved profile, apparently. So I'm very motivated to continue and actually get through this. And if you can't get someone to finish something, the best thing you can do is guilt trip them about it. So again, we want to feel a sense of closure, and that's why we feel really bad when we don't get to finish something. So again, Nike does this with, if you didn't finish, you didn't get to your goal, you can do it better next time. But actually research found that we remember tasks that are not complete much more than tasks that are complete, which is really interesting. Like, they actually stay in our minds longer. Self-expression. We are unique. We want to show to the world how unique we are. Our team coordinator tells us every day that we are all unique, special snowflakes, and we want to show that to the world. And that's why whenever we get a cappuccino, we all take a picture of it and post it on Instagram, like everybody else. And generally speaking, we perceive things that we create or things that are ours as much more valuable than anything else. So a very plain old, white mug becomes a really sweet memento of my trip to Seattle Aerospace Museum, where I took this silly picture, and it becomes this really precious memory that I have of this trip. So in your products, find ways for people to actually be able to customize the experience or create those special moments where they can get attached to it. There's different ways that you can do that, but One way is to actually customize the product. So, Scion does this where you can actually customize the car, you can pick some sweet wheels, you can pick the color, and then you are much more likely to actually go and check it out than to, kind of abandon this thing and just, move on to the next thing. You do have to keep personalization options pretty small because we don't have a very long attention span. I think statistically speaking, we lose our attention about every 8 minutes. So that means you have lost me about 4 times so far. But when I was signing up for ShoeDazzle, of course I did, they had just 4 steps to customizing my personal style, and now I get awesome emails every single day telling me about awesome shoes. All right, and lastly, surprise and delight. You want to surprise people and keep them engaged and keep them entertained throughout the site. The interesting thing about that is that we only remember key moments in our experiences. So from my trip to Rome, I remember how beautiful the Vatican was at night, and I also remember the 20 euros that we spent on some damn cannoli right outside of it. 20 euros really wasted, but that's something that sticks out in my mind. We generally remember only the highs and the low of all the experiences that we have. So in your products, you can actually create those high moments. So Flickr does this by putting a little notice in the corner and letting you know how to say hello in some other language. And if I was able to read that, I would know how to say hello in Finnish. Copy is extremely important. Obviously, it serves a really important function on the site, but it's also your opportunity to create that moment, that personal moment where someone can actually connect to your product. And Easter eggs are awesome. We were pretty jazzed when we heard that Vogue UK was using our own little Raptorized JS on their site. You can check that out at zurb.com/playground. But so they had our little Raptorized or dinosaur pop up with all these crazy hats all over their site. It was pretty epic, and it made us very excited. So inevitably, you're going to have the lows, in the site. You can't get away from that. But you can actually use it to create those moments of personality as well. So a form validation is a great way to bring a little bit more personality into the experience. And you can have a lot of fun with the 404 pages or the 500 pages, the error pages. Don't just make it a static, horrible, stupid page. Make it something fun, something that somebody's going to remember. And if you're looking for some inspiration, we have a whole bunch of them on Pattern Tab. So if you check it out, you can search for funny 404 pages. So all the 9 behaviors. This is just 9 of them. We have a library of about almost 80 of them. But what you can do is actually you can customize them and sort of dial them in to figure out what's the best approach for your product. Don't take it lightly. It's a huge thing to be able to connect to people and actually create these experiences that are really tailored for them. So to review, you can show someone something that they're already familiar with to create a little bit more trust. You can give someone a comparison so that they can understand the value of your product. You can tell me how awesome the product is based on the people that are already using it, and tell me that I should be using it as well. You can prove that it's actually worth the value that you say it is, and be very authoritative and be very definitive in the messaging. You have to make it attractive, you have to make me want it, and you have to make it easy to use so that I can get past the trust barrier right away and find out how awesome the product is. You can make it a fun, awesome game. You can help someone get closure and get to the end of a process very easily and have a good time through it. You can let someone feel awesome and unique and make it very a personal thing for them. And if all fails, you have to entertain. You have to make it fun. So that's it. I am happy to take questions. And like I said, there are stickers for you. And if you were able to find the Easter egg in the presentation slides, come see me. I have a special sticker for you.